On today's show, Evan Mobley wins Defensive Player of the Year, and now it's time to shift the attention to Game 3. We'll do all that and so much more on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name's Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That is code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Evan Mobley won the Defensive Player of the Year award on Thursday night. It was announced around 6:30 Eastern time. Obviously, the first time Evan has won this award. I think it's a very well-deserved honor, recognition, award, whatever you want to call it. Evan deserved this, and I'm glad that he got it. I thought that the voters here, in this case, got it right. I don't necessarily agree with every award that's been handed out so far. Like, those awards wouldn't all match the ballot that I would have turned in hypothetically, but Evan Mobley would have been my Defensive Player of the Year. I thought he deserved this, and I think it's fitting that he gets this. I really do think that he was the best defensive player from wire to wire this season in the NBA. And I think that it's maybe he only ends up winning one. Maybe he wins two. Maybe he wins three. I don't know. But I think it would have been wrong to look at Evan Mobley's career and say that guy never won a Defensive Player of the Year. And of course, like, he's only in year 4, and there's so much left in what should be a very long, promising, great career for Evan Mobley. But this is, to this point, obviously the biggest honor, the biggest recognition that he's gotten. So Evan finished with 35 first place votes. There are 100 people that vote on every award. 35 of them voted Evan Mobley first place. He was on 85 of the 100 ballots, which was by far the most. He had the most first place votes, as you would imagine. He had 10 more than Dyson Daniels, who finished in second from the Atlanta Hawks. Draymond Green. Remember when Draymond Green went on his podcast and talked about how deserving he was of this awards? And then our, friends at FanDuel shifted the betting odds to reflect that Draymond was the favorite. I thought it was interesting that he wasn't not only not the winner, but not even second place either, and wasn't even close. I thought that was really interesting, and I think pretty telling about what this year actually was, and maybe that a player going on a podcast and talking about how great said player is might not always be the best way to judge things. And I think that the voters got it right. And I am, to a certain extent, like, I'm glad Evan won because I thought Evan was the best defensive player. Like, does Dyson Daniels have a case? Sure. When you look at his steal numbers, when you look at his deflection numbers, all that matters. But then I look and see, the Hawks were like 18th or 19th in defense this year. It's hard for me to say, yeah, that guy was the best defensive player this year, but his team stunk defensively. Like, I have a hard time connecting that. And with Evan, the Cavs were a top 10 defense. I think they underachieved on that end. I don't think that stuff was Evan's fault. And I thought the on-off numbers very much were in his favor over the other guys that were contending in this award. But I thought it was really interesting that, not that Evan won, like, I expected that to happen. It was the right outcome. The voters got it right, all that. I thought it was interesting that Draymond finished third. Lou Dort finished fourth. I would have had Lou Dort in my top 3. I would not have had Draymond in my top 3. Amen Thompson finished fifth, which I don't think that's wrong. Like, I think that we are going to be entering a world where next year, and you hope that everybody is healthy, but if I were to predict what the the defensive player of the year finalists next year look like. 1 year from now, maybe we're talking about Evan winning another one. I don't know. But I think Evan's going to be a finalist again next year. I think it's going to be Victor Wembanyama as long as he's healthy. And I think it's going to be Amen Thompson from Houston. Like, I think that is the future of this award. And the league is in a really great place, I think, as far as super talented young defenders. And I think it's a really cool thing that Evan Mobley in year 4 at his age wins this. Like, he joins a very small list of players that include guys like Jaren Jackson Jr., who won it a few years ago when Evan finished third and had a case to do it. Kawhi Leonard won this at a very young age. Like, this is something that is a really big honor for Evan. And of course, it is something that has implications for the Cavs, because what does Evan Mobley winning this award do? It gives him more money. That is one of the things, that is one of these stipulations that was built into his contract, that if he won Defensive Player of the Year or finished first or second team All-NBA this year, and that's important as part of this discussion too, because there was some freak out on the internet about this and about what this is going to do for the Cavs. So if he, this year, if he would have won Defensive Player of the Year, which we now know he has, or finished first team All-NBA or second team All-NBA, his contract moving forward starts at 30% of the cap next year, as opposed to, had he not received any postseason awards, it would have been 25% of the cap. Had he finished third team All-NBA, it would have been, I believe, 27 or 27 and a half. I'm not positive on that, but it would have been that percent of the cap. But with him winning this award, it's 30% of the cap. So Evan got himself a very, very nice financial boost by winning this award. But this is not something that the Cavs haven't been planning for. Like, they didn't go into this thinking, Evan they didn't go into this thinking that they were going to get Evan on a bargain because he wasn't going to produce this year. They expected him maybe not to win Defensive Player of the Year just because of Victor Wembanyama and how heavy of a favorite he was. But I think they expected him to be an All-NBA player this year, and those teams have not yet been released. I don't know when that stuff comes out. I would imagine within the next couple of weeks. But I think Evan's going to be he's going to be an All-NBA player. I would bet as of right now that Evan Mobley finishes second team All-NBA, not only because of how good he was being the Defensive Player of the Year on that end of the floor, but also because of the leaps that he made offensively. I think that he's going to be recognized this year, and I do think team success probably matters a little bit, and the Cavs winning 64 games will be a boost in this category to him. I think he's going to be recognized as one of the guys that had one of the 10 best seasons in basketball this year. I think Donovan's going to be first team All-NBA. I think Evan's going to be second team All-NBA. So had he not won Defensive Player of the Year, it's not as if this escalator would not have happened. I think he would have gotten that anyways. So instead of making $38.6 million next year in year 1 of his rookie extension, Evan's going to be making $46.3 million. That is a sizable difference. Now, how does this impact the Cavs? It means they're going to have to pay a higher tax bill. That's what this is going to be. They were going to, whether Evan won this award, whether he finished first or second team All-NBA, whether he finished third team All-NBA, whether he did nothing and just made that base $38 million number, the Cavs were going to be a second apron team. Like, this is not something that pushes them from being first apron to second apron. This is something that pushes them further into the second apron. They're going to be a more expensive team because of this, but this doesn't necessarily change the way they can operate in terms of what rules they have to follow, what specific things have been put in place with the apron system that we've seen come into effect over the last couple of years. So this isn't anything that I think is going to change the way the Cavs operate. Now, they can't live in the second apron forever, but this isn't something that pushes them into the second apron. When the Cavs traded for DeAndre Hunter earlier this year, it did two things, aside from making the team better. Like, it did two salary cap things. It took them out of the tax for this season. It made them a non-tax paying team this season, and it made them a second apron team next season. That was kind of a trade-off that they had. This has nothing to do with that. This will make them more expensive. Absolutely. They're going to cost a lot of money. And you better be a championship contender, and they are a championship contender, and there's no reason to believe that next year they won't be a championship contender again, but they're going to cost a lot of money, and they're going to cost more money because Evan has produced in the sense that he has, and my sense is the Cavs are more than okay with that the Cavs are very happy that Evan has grown to this level of player, and I think they're happy to be paying him the extra money. So what his contract is going to look like moving forward, it is that 5-year extension that begins next year, $46 million next year. The 27 season, $50 million. In 2028, he'll be making 53, 2029, 57, and 2030. Evan Mobley will be making $61 million. His contract extension goes from 5 years, $224 million to 5 years, $269 million. So congratulations to Evan Mobley, not only for winning Defensive Player of the Year, for putting something in that trophy case. I believe the first award he's won, like season award he's won, because he somehow, I still don't understand this, did not win Rookie of the Year his first year in the NBA because Scotty Barnes had a really nice close to the season. But congratulations to him because his bank account got a lot bigger and his trophy case has something pretty significant in it. Now, of course, he's looking to add something more significant to it, and that would be a Larry O'Brien trophy. And the Cavs are still in the midst of the playoffs. We have not forgotten about the first round series against the Miami Heat because Evan Mobley won Defensive Player of the Year. Game 3 is tomorrow in Miami. I want to talk about some of the things that I think the Cavs need to do and what I'm really looking for as they head to South Beach. We're going to do that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Do you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it can be easy to lose track of all that cash. And that's where Monarch Money comes in, because they'll be your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center, and you can track all your accounts, investments, and spending right in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you can start building your wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan for some of those long-term goals that I know you have. And managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all the stress that you might think comes along with it. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA, that is LOCKEDONNBA, at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts. Make sure you give us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review as well. Game 3 in Miami tomorrow afternoon, 1 o'clock tip-off time. And there are a couple of things that I'm looking for from the Cavs in this game. And the one thing is sort of where we left off the other night with what Darius Garland said after game 2, where he was asked, how do you play a clean game against Miami? And the Cavs have done a great job of limiting their turnovers offensively. They've been spectacular offensively, I think, in the first 2 games, even with the lulls. And there were a couple of those. Obviously, in game 2, that second quarter was so good. The rest of the game maybe wasn't quite as great. But the Cavs offensively have been awesome. And one of the things they've done is they've just attacked Tyler Herro mercilessly over and over and over again. He has been the guy whenever he's on the floor. And of course, he's on the floor a lot because he's one of Miami's best players. Whenever he's on the floor, the Cavs are doing everything they can to attack him. They want to put him in every action. They want to make him work offensively and defensively, because if he's working defensively, the thinking is that he'll maybe be a little bit less effective offensively, right? That's typically how it goes. And I did a little bit of digging into the numbers earlier today, and I wrote about this a little bit more in depth than I can kind of talk about it. Just because the way it's easier to, I think, explain in writing and with video and stuff than I can on this podcast. But the Cavs have had a lot of success against Tyler Herro. And Tyler's been, I think, really good offensively for Miami. I think that he is one of the biggest reasons why, and Davion Mitchell is another one, and we'll talk about him coming up in a bit too. But Tyler's offense has been one of the biggest reasons why Miami was able to fight back, I think, in both game 1 and in game 2. So far, Herro has scored 54 points in this series. He had 21 in game 1, he had 33 in game 2 the other night. 54 points, remember that. So the Cavs, as I've mentioned, have attacked him relentlessly. He's put in pick and roll all the time. He is not just forced to switch onto a defender or onto a Cavs perimeter player on the offensive end, like Donovan Mitchell, like Darius Garland. It's that they're forcing that switch, and then they're making him defend a pick and roll. They're not just isolating him. So they're making him kind of switch and then try and get through a screen on the other end of that. And that's a difficult thing. And we can talk about what Miami tried to do to alleviate that a little bit. But that is very clearly, like, Darius Garland didn't need to say, hey, breaking news, we're going at Tyler Herro. If you just watch the games, you knew, oh, the Cavs are going at Tyler Herro. So I didn't think those comments were that big of a deal. It was a big deal that Darius Garland just came out and said, yes, we want to attack Tyler Herro, because you don't often hear that thing said. But in the 2 games that the Cavs have played so far this year, Tyler Herro has been targeted a lot. And with good reason. Because in the time that Tyler Herro's been on the floor, Miami's defensive rating is 134.9. So the Cavs have an offensive rating of 134.9 when Tyler Herro is on the floor. They've been fantastic. Furthermore, Herro has been the primary defender on 33 field goal attempts in the first 2 games of this series. So the Cavs have attempted 33 shots with Tyler Herro defending the guy who is shooting the basketball. They've made 21 of them. I'm not going to tell you what the percentage is, but, I think your simple math tells you it's pretty good. Tyler Herro, as a primary defender, according to NBA.com stats, their tracking data, Tyler Herro, as a primary defender, has allowed 56 points in 2 games. Now, he scored 54. He's been really good. But for as good as he's been offensively, the Cavs have won that battle. And I do think that that is something that, as this series goes on, because I mentioned earlier the whole making him work defensively to tire him out offensively, that is something that has already started in the Cavs' favor. And I think as this series goes on, and I do not expect this to be a very long series, but as this series goes on, that is something that with each passing game, especially after game 3, because after game 3, there are no more extended breaks, right? Like I think Tyler was a little bit better offensively in game 2, partially because it wasn't his 3rd game in 5 days, because there were 2 days in between games for Miami for the first time in a week after they had played Wednesday and Friday in the play-in just to get to Cleveland on Sunday. But after game 3, it's every other day. Right? Game 3 Saturday, game 4 is Monday, game 5 is Wednesday if you need it. If a game 6 is needed, and I do not anticipate that happening, that will be next Friday in Miami. Just there's going to be less recovery time, and I think you're going to start to see him be more and more worn out. So the Cavs are going to continue to do this because they've found success, even when Herro's been really good offensively. And I thought he was awesome offensively in game 2. He was still worse defensively. Like, that is the thing that I keep coming back to, is Darius Garland can go out and say that because the Cavs have had so much success against Tyler Herro by picking on him. And I don't know what answers Miami has. They've tried some things where they're trying to switch him out of the action before his guy gets up to set a screen. That can be something that can get the Cavs out of their flow a little bit, but that's just not a way that I think Miami can live defensively. That's going to continue to be the Cavs strategy. And that is one of the things that I'm very interested in seeing, is how relentless are they going to be in trying to attack Herro? And I do think that there's a danger in it. Not because Tyler is going to find a way to get stop after stop after stop. He's not. He's not a good defender. That's why they continue to go at him, or at least part of the reason why they continue to go at him. But I do think that there's a danger in that, because if you just try and matchup hunt, if you just try and find the mismatch and go at it every single time, it can lead to a bit of an unhealthy offense in some sense. And I think that when the Cavs are maybe when the basketball is not moving that much, and we've seen this in games against Boston this year, and this is absolutely something to look at when that series, if and when that series rolls around in a couple of weeks, is what does that look like in terms of the ball stopping? Because the Cavs have had issues when they start to try and really mismatch hunt like that. And I do think that if there is one concern about trying to attack Tyler Herro over and over and over again, it's maybe that ball doesn't move quite as much as you would like to see it move. And then the other thing is Miami going to play more zone than they have so far? I think the Cavs have done a really good job against the zone offensively, but I think that Miami's going to need to find a way to get more offense on the floor, and maybe that's Duncan Robinson. His tracking numbers aren't nearly as bad as Herro's, but the Cavs have absolutely decimated the Heat when he's been on the floor. Game 2, he was a minus 17 in 12 minutes. They just absolutely cooked Miami's defense, and part of it was the Cavs just got white hot from 3 in the second quarter, and they lit up Miami because they were so good from beyond the arc against that zone. I do think that the Cavs have too many shooters for Miami to play zone against, so I don't know if that can necessarily be an adjustment that they can continue to make. And it does feel like it felt like Miami made a lot of adjustments in game 2, right? They put Davion Mitchell into the starting lineup. Their rotation just fundamentally changed. Like Alec Burks, who was in the starting lineup in game 1. Now he only played 15 minutes for Miami, so it's not like he had a huge part in this game or that game. I guess I should say, but he didn't play in game 2. He wasn't part of the lineup. Kyle Anderson, another guy, played in game 1. And I know that his box score is never going to necessarily stick out in a good way, but he didn't play in game 2. You saw Nikola Jovic, you saw Pelle Larsson, you saw Erik Spoelstra try and pull different levers to see what worked and what didn't work. Davion Mitchell being in the starting lineup was better. Davion has had a great series so far. I thought he was the best player Miami had, maybe other than Bam Adebayo in game 1. And I thought that he was one of the best players that Miami had in game 2. I can't imagine that the Heat are going to do anything other than start him. He played a lot of minutes coming off the bench in game 1. He played right around 34 minutes in game 1, I want to say. And then in game 2 as a starter, he was obviously out there a lot too, playing 36 minutes. And he was 7 of 9 from the floor and scored 18 points. I thought, and he's a pretty big pest defensively too, I think it's fair to say. But I say all of this to sort of get to the point of what other adjustments does Miami have? Because as you look up and down this series, so much of it just becomes about, well, the Cavs have better basketball players, and the Cavs have a significantly more talented roster than the Miami Heat do. Kenny Atkinson, who, I think the world of Erik Spoelstra as a coach, I think very similar about Kenny Atkinson. I think he's a fantastic coach. I really, really have been impressed with what we have seen from him all year long. To be fair in this discussion, I think it's much easier for Kenny Atkinson to make these adjustments because he's got much better players. The Cavs are a much better team than the Miami Heat. They are. I don't know what adjustments Miami has left. And that, to me, kind of gets me to, okay, well, what should game 3 look like exactly? And is there any concern about going to Miami, a place that the Cavs as a franchise have historically struggled? Well, let's talk about that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. For watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, hit that notification bell. Make sure you're subscribed to the Locked On Cavs daily newsletter, your one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox every single weekday. And if you sign up right now, you will be entered to win a $2,500 Best Buy gift card, a $300 Game Time gift card, or a $200 Fanatics gift card. All you got to do, head on over to LockedOnDaily.com right now. Sign up between now and April 30th to be automatically entered to win. Again, cost you nothing to sign up for this. You could win some pretty great prizes. So head on over to LockedOnDaily.com to sign up for that. But game 3 1 o'clock in Miami Saturday. I am very interested to see what the Cavs look like because, as I just mentioned, Miami's made a lot of adjustments in this series already. Some of them have worked better than others. Like the Nikola Jovic minutes down the stretch of game 2 were not very good for Miami. So I don't know if maybe we see less of him. I don't know what Miami can do, but I do know that because of what Miami stands for as an organization. And I think it's fair to say in these first 2 games where the Heat had plenty of opportunity, I think, to just lie down and say, okay, that's enough. We're done here. We don't want to be here. They didn't do that. They had the opportunity to do that, and they didn't do that. They trailed by 19 points in the second half against the Cavs in game 2, and they cut it to 2. And they probably walked out of Rocket Arena feeling, in both games, I don't know that I agree with this, but Miami probably walked out of Rocket Arena Sunday and Wednesday feeling like, man, we should have stole that one. I don't agree with that, certainly about game 1. Game 2, maybe they have the case. I don't know. That one I'm a little more open to hearing the argument about. But that's probably how they feel heading back to Miami. And whenever a team is down 0-2 and headed home, game 3 is typically the best they've got, right? You saw that on Thursday night. OKC beat Memphis by 51 points in game 1. And then they beat them by 19 points in game 2. And I'm recording this. It's the end of the third quarter right now as I'm talking into this microphone. And Memphis is leading OKC 95-84. The third quarter did not go well for the Grizzlies after having a great first 2 quarters against OKC. So they might not win this game. But the point is, you're seeing a much, much better performance from Memphis down 0-2 at home. Are we going to see that from Miami on Saturday? I think the fact that this game is at 1 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon makes it weird. I don't know who it makes it weirder for. Historically, the Cavs have struggled in Miami. Now, they've never played a postseason game in Miami because this is the first time they've ever seen the Heat in the playoffs. And I think that there is a different level of focus that the Cavs should have going to Miami in the playoffs as opposed to going to Miami in the regular season. I think that is a fair thing to say, and maybe part of the reason at times, not just the Cavs, but other teams have struggled in Miami when they have to go see the Heat. But I do think that whatever adjustments Miami has left, they're not saving them for game 4. The Cavs are going to see them in game 3. Miami's going to do everything they possibly can to find a way to win this game, to find a way to be able to tell themselves, hey, we can make this a series. That's what they're going to try and do. How do the Cavs respond to that? What is the Cavs' focus level in this game? Because I do think as the 1 seed with a 2-0 lead, celebrating Evan Mobley winning Defensive Player of the Year, I think this is a very easy moment where they could take their foot off the gas. I don't know that I could blame them. I don't. But I do think that if they don't take their foot off the gas, if they press that accelerator down even further and send a third message to Miami, not just that, you guys tried a lot of stuff in game 2 and it didn't work. We still won. And this message would be, you couldn't win at home. And not only just that, but we're up 3-0 in this year. We're done here. Like, do you want to lie down on Monday in game 4? Or do you guys really want to get back on a plane and come to Cleveland for game 5 to get blown out? Right? I think that's kind of what the message becomes if the Cavs find a way to win on Saturday. But how focused they are in this game, how sharp they are. And I do think because it's at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, no matter what city it would have been in, a 1 o'clock in the afternoon Saturday playoff game is a little bit strange. It's a little bit awkward. It is. So what the Cavs look like, I think will be really, really interesting to watch. I think this is a fascinating game. It could be a big statement for the Cavs. They could have the opportunity to tell Miami, we are going to sweep you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Or Miami could be booking a flight back to Cleveland for game 5 after game 3. I don't know, but we will find out. I will be flying to Miami today. I'm getting on a plane this afternoon, heading down south for games 3 and 4. So I will be back with an immediate reaction podcast, like an hour and a half or so after game 3 from the arena, the same way that I've been doing for the first 2 games from Rocket Arena, except this one will be from the Kaseya Center in Miami, I think is what that building's called now. So I will be there. Of course, I will have a full Locked On Cavs as well after games 3 and game 4. But make sure you keep it locked in right here with Locked On Cavs. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. And thank you for making it your first listen every single day. And if you're watching on YouTube, do me favors. We get out of here. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. I'll be back after game 3